Welcome to ResMan Help. This session covers Stage 2 of PPMs in ResMan, dealing with setting up and maintaining the actual PPMs, and the progress bar at the top of this slide, shown in green, that we've already set up our control file and supporting code files. This flowchart shows the process of creating our PPM references, adding PPM jobs that can either be a single task or multiple jobs, and finally, only when our PPMs have been added to assets, we can set up location-specific variations to a job, which are discussed later. Our flowchart showed our starting point being the creation of a PPM reference, which we do in the work section, taking the PPM planning and scheduling option. This now shows the PPM reference list. As we create our PPM references, they appear in this list, which has columns to show if the PPM has got active jobs, the number of assets a PPM is attached to, the number of jobs or tasks within the PPM, the number of variant PPMs, which are the variations to a PPM job based on assets in different locations, and whether documents are attached to the PPM. These columns will automatically be filled with data as our PPMs are created and maintained. Finally, for organizations with large numbers of PPMs, you can filter this form using the standard filter row and two built-in filters to find a PPM job ID and work type. And I'll just move the mouse over that area in Actions where you can see where those built-in filters are. We use the Add PPM option and add a unique alphanumeric PPM reference and an intuitive description to easily identify types of PPM. In this example, we've set up a reference called Gas Annual with a description of Gas Annual Service and Safety Certificate Check. We can use the Delete PPM option, providing the PPM has not been used in work processing. If it has been used, we simply make the PPM inactive. Once our PPM reference is created, the bottom graphic shows a section of the PPM reference list with our PPM reference, Gas Annual included, but without any data in the various columns. We're now ready to add our first PPM job to this PPM, and we use the Add PPM Job option to create our work details. In this example, on our Gas Annual, we've created an annual job. We've scheduled it with a preferred day of Thursday and issued to a contractor. It also contains all of the PPM job information, including a frequency field to ensure the PPM job occurs in the frequency selected from the drop-down list of weeks, and in this example 52 would be an annual frequency. The series field is utilized to prevent suppression of higher frequency jobs with the same staff designation, and we simply select a number from the drop-down list. So in other words, do we want to create two jobs for the same trade when an annual job coincides with a half-yearly job? We enter our KPI priority and work type, and you remember that these were all set up in our work setup files. Next, we enter our estimated time in hours and minutes and an estimated cost. And these values are used on the cost estimate report showing actual against estimates, and a variance is calculated. There's also a contractor version of that report. The estimated hours are totaled in the PPM planning year to assist with our demand and capacity planning. The Staff Issued tab lets you allocate a staff member who would typically be assigned to this job, if known at that time. This is ideal for staff based at different locations or with specific skills. The Parts tab lets you associate parts to be used during a PPM and have these printed on your job docket or displayed on a mobile device if required. The Documents tab enables any documents to be referred to during the PPM to be printed with the job. The Job Variations tab is going to be discussed later in this help file. There are two tick boxes. Firstly, when a job is no longer required, we untick the active ticks box, so that's its default status, active, and if all jobs within a PPM have the active flag unticked, the active field on the PPM form is automatically shown as no. The no move tick box, if ticked, will prevent a PPM from being moved in the PPM planning routine from one week to another. This is useful if a PPM is scheduled for a location where it's imperative that work is carried out on a scheduled day. We can also set a risk rating for this PPM and add any useful notes, and again this can appear on the standard job docket or a mobile device. The Job Details box is the work content which will appear on the docket or mobile device. Now, once a PPM has been set up in this way, jobs will occur faithfully in the same week each year. And once a PPM has been added to an asset, you can change the PPM start date from within the asset as required to smooth your planned work. As can be seen now, our PPM reference details show our newly entered job, and the bottom graphic shows the section on the PPM reference list with our PPM reference gas annual now showing one job in the jobs column. Clearly, our PPMs will not create jobs until we associate them with an asset. Fortunately, ResMan's extremely flexible in our options here, and we can add assets to a PPM while here in the work processing PPM section, or alternatively, we can add a PPM to assets from within an asset record. And we're going to discuss both of those options in the Stage 3 video. However, the remainder of this presentation refers specifically to variation PPMs and adding those variations to assets. It may be necessary to create a PPM job for assets at different locations with differing criteria. It could be that if you include travelling time in your estimated time, some locations may take longer. Some assets at a location may be dealt with by a resident engineer or a specific contractor, and we may need to include location-specific text in the work details relating to access, availability, etc., and our risk rating may well be different. In this instance, we can set up a variation of an existing PPM job, and a simple two-stage wizard guides us through this process. The first wizard form lets you select the assets based on their location, and then once you've selected those, the second stage of the wizard lets you choose the PPM jobs to carry out the variations to. This displays a PPM job form containing all of the job details, with those that we wouldn't want to alter are greyed out. We can then add different values to all or any of the fields that are available, and when the variation job is saved, it gives a unique variant reference. And that finishes stage 2 of our PPM setup.